Watch this Karan Johar clip first, and then I'll give you a simple yet important legal insight for people involved in the startup ecosystem.
And giving it your time and energy, then you can't have just sweat equity or just 2 or 3%. Then you should have a larger. Then, of course, then sweat equity can be given to you, or I have a lot of sweat equity in places where I'm doing it a subtle way you won't even know.
Now, in this clip, you just saw Mr. Karan Johar constantly talking about this term called sweat equity. And if you have been in the startup ecosystem, you must have heard this. And the common notion that prevails in the startup ecosystem is that sweat equity and advisory shares are basically one and the same thing. However, legally, this is an incorrect view because there are differences amongst them. And the most fundamental difference is that who this equity can be allotted to. And this is because once you see the Companies Act 2013, you will realize that the term sweat equity that is thrown very casually, it's actually not a market term. It is not created by the system. It is a defined term in the act itself. And the definition by itself makes it abundantly clear that sweat equity cannot be just granted to an outsider. Rather, it can only be given to an employee or the director of the company, which means the person receiving the sweat equity has to be associated with the company and working within the company, which means the sweat equity concept is a slightly narrower concept. On the other hand, advisory shares is a much broader concept. It is not defined in the Companies Act, so you have much more leeway to work around with it. And in the case of an advisory share, you can very well issue shares and equity to a complete outsider as well.